kind of the rationalization that your first guest was saying there, Piers, that like, well, you know, everybody serves in the IDF in Israel, and therefore we really just got to go after everybody because you never know who here might be one of our oppressors or something like that. It's all just ridiculous logic. And look, there's the what is the intention of an ethnic cleansing campaign? Is that an unintended consequence as Israel is floating this out? Huh?
It's not an ethnic cleansing campaign. This is you just regurgitating buzzwords. But I clearly said that
hold on. Listen, this is what's just so wait. No, I'm not regurgitating buzzwords. I'm talking about what one of the most powerful people at the absolute top of the Israeli government, their finance minister, said. Look, the Palestinians in Gaza in the West Bank are there largely because they were ethnically cleansed out of where they were living for generations before that. So no, I'm sorry. It's just what's ridiculous. What are you talking about? Ethnic cleanse? You're talking about the Nakba? Yes.
Yeah, you're talking about the fact that when the war broke out against Israel, that some of the camps were exiled because some of them were collaborating with the Arabs that were engaging in the war with Israel, and others of them were not, which is why they were grandfathered.
Right. Yeah. 750,000 people were forced out of their house and did. Oh no, actually, we are, and you don't get to just say we're not going to get into this conversation.
You're not answering the point. You're not answering the point that I've made. I clearly said in that example that I gave you that both of those situations were completely wrong, but the motivation was different, and that is how you know. And you haven't addressed that.
No, sorry. Maybe you're not getting me. Yes, I think it's completely ridiculous for you to just get to claim that the Israeli motivations are pure. I'm sorry, especially when listen, Benjamin.
Who said pure?
Okay,
whatever.
Pure? Okay, you're just breaking up. You don't get to just claim. This is nonsense. You don't get to. Oh my God, you just have nothing except nonsense and interrupting me. Okay, so when Benjamin Netanyahu goes to the United Nations a couple of weeks before October 7th and has Greater Israel on a map where all of Gaza and all of the West Bank are Israel, I'm sorry, why is it that you just get to give him the assumption that the motivation here wasn't to destroy Gaza, ethnically cleanse it, and annex it, as they're openly talking about doing right now? Now, I'm sure there's some people in Israel who don't have those motivations. I'm sure there are some people in Hamas who maybe just wanted to have a two-state solution. But still, when the overwhelming motivations of the leadership are this impure, I don't think you get to say, oh, there's a major difference between, because one side's motivation is purely just to get the bad guy. Okay. This is just, we should talk about it, but only in the framework that it's not the fault of the people who are dropping the bombs on the innocent people or shooting the people who are the ones. Hey, you know what? You just asked, you just had, excuse me, you just had your whole thing about let you finish and then you can respond to that. So why don't we do the same?
I know. And you stopped me when you were being
you opened by saying that Piers. You got interrupted when you said Piers was running cover for Hamas by pointing out that Israel's going too far. Quiet. Let me. No, you didn't. Your point stopped. Listen.
All right, don't talk over each other. Elica, let Dave respond, and then you respond to him.
I listened to the garbage you had to say.
Let him respond, then you reply.
Let me get in now.
But I didn't say no response.
All right, but stop talking.
Lady, let me just save you all the time in this debate. You wanted to debate me because I'm so wrong about everything and I'm so influential, and you wanted to smack it down. It ain't gonna be you, lady. You're not the one who's gonna stop me. This is just ridiculous.
It's lady.
Okay, I'll call you whatever. Oh, okay, good one. Oh yeah, you really smacked down my bad ideas. Anyway, Piers, again, all they have.
You're too stupid to realize it. You're too stupid to realize how bad your ideas are.
There you go. That's the argument you got. Anyway, can I talk now?
Sure.
Okay. So Piers, as always, it's just the same thing on repeat here, right? So the defense is to go, but look, the motivation of Israel is pure. The motivation of everybody else is evil, even though obviously what Israel is doing is objectively torturing women and children to death as they die with their bones crushed under rubble. But also, Piers, don't let it mess with you that at the highest levels of the Israeli government, they've kind of told you what their motivations are here. I mean, the South African case that they brought to the International Court of Justice was like 90% just direct quotes from Israeli leaders. The prime minister himself referred to them as Amalek when talking to the military. You got the finance minister, the defense minister bragging about how nobody's getting any food for a 3-month period, bragging that not 1 ounce of grain will get into Gaza. I mean, I'm sorry, this is obviously terrorism. It borders on genocide. It's horrifically wrong. And for you to use your example of saying like, oh, this is what I'm saying is that a guy who robs a store and a cop who comes to stop them are committing the same act because they're pointing a gun at each other. Yeah, but of course, in that example, they're right. But in that, no, that's what you said. That's what you said about my point. And it was really dumb Because in that example, there aren't innocent people being slaughtered. Yeah, it kind of is.
But you wouldn't dispute, though, the central argument that Israel has about it, which is that Iran has been the main sponsor for Hamas, the Houthis and Hezbollah for a number of years, all of whom are terror groups wedded to eliminating Israel. You wouldn't dispute that?
I don't dispute that they have supported those groups, and I don't dispute that that's the Israeli
claim. So isn't that right there
fairly,
the existential threat to Israel?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but Israel, no, listen, if Israel is the only country in the Middle East who secretly has nuclear weapons and is not a member of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and they also funded Hamas. So I'm sorry, I do not think it's a legitimate justification for them to launch a war because they claim someone else is making nukes when they're not, and also they also funded Hamas or something like that. So no.
Can I respond to this now? Can I respond to this now? First of all, this claim that there's no evidence that the regime is making nukes is totally false. It's totally false. We know that they've enriched to 60%, which means they're 90% of the way there. There's no reason to have anything above 3 to 5% for civilian use. Everybody understands that 60%, the only purpose of it is for nuclear weapons.
Listen, there's no question that they upped the enrichment, but listen, here's the point. They weren't allowed to, under the JCPOA. Okay. Under the JCPOA, when America was involved, they weren't allowed to enrich to this level, but they were allowed to do it if America pulled out. That's in the JCPOA agreement. And so when Donald Trump tore that up, and walked away, they brought their enrichment up. What were the negotiations, Pierce, that were happening right before Israel launched their surprise attack? It was for Iran to bring the enrichment back down and America to get back in some type of agreement. They weren't going to call it the JCPOA because Donald Trump would have had to make it his own thing and not getting back into Obama's.
Trump gave them 60 days to negotiate. Trump said you got 60 days, and day 61, Israel attacked.
Right. Okay. Now, but what happened, and this was widely reported, and Donald Trump himself acknowledged this, is that the Hawks insisted that you put a poison pill in the negotiations. This is what Mark Levin was freaking out about, and that the standard has to be that Iran must give up all nuclear enrichment altogether. This was always a poison pill so that the point is that Iran was willing to negotiate. And so if you really wanted to get back into that deal, Donald Trump honestly just never should have torn up the JCPOA, and we'd all be in a much better situation. It ushered in a new inspection regime, and so we know this is why we know that they're enriching up to 60% because they're still in the agreement and they still have the inspections. Unlike